Welcome into another episode. I'm really excited to be joined today by one of the coaches who has done an exemplary job this year with Fairfield. That's Carly Thibault-DuDonis. First and foremost, Carly, how are you doing?
I'm great. It's actually a sunshiny morning here in Connecticut, and if you didn't know any better, you'd think it was really warm out.
Yeah, no, exactly. I live in Cleveland. I walked my dog this morning, got all dressed up in sweatpants and a hoodie and multiple layers. And I was outside for a little bit. I was like, you know what, this isn't too bad. And then I rounded a corner in my development. I was like, oh wow, there's no sun. This is awful. So yeah,
Yeah, the
relatable.
sun's different this time of year.
Yeah, just a little bit. But obviously, I mean, it's kind of wild to think about how far we are into the year already. It's 20 games. What about like 10-ish left in conference play? How are you kind of feeling with where the season's at right now? And also, how does it feel hearing it's February 6th already?
We're happy with where we are. I'm really proud of the progress and growth that we've made just throughout the course of the season to this point. And you want to keep getting better. And it's funny because you're like we've accomplished a lot, but we still have so far to go. We still have so much season left. And it's really important how we finish. And so I'm excited because February can be a really interesting month depending on injuries and wear and tear on bodies and things like that. And we're excited because we don't play anybody, crazy minutes. We play a lot. We play a deep bench. So I like to think we're going to be fresh this time of year.
Yeah, definitely. I think going right into that too, like you mentioned with playing a deep bench, and staying process oriented. Because I know any presser from you guys, anything put out by Fairfield, you're going to hear process. How, especially, and this is not meant as like a slight to the MAAC, but I know you guys are very head and shoulders the top of the MAAC right now. And I think one of the things that stands out to me is like there are very few games where it feels like you guys play down to whoever you're playing against. Like it feels like you approach every game like you are playing Vanderbilt or playing the best team. So what has been really pivotal in instilling that? Because I think there are plenty of
Well,
mid-major teams that can struggle with that at times.
Well, I think that's been a process. And you said the word process, but I think that has evolved for us. I wouldn't say we did that really well early on.
Hmm.
I thought we did kind of play up and down depending on opponent and games in the non-conference. And we did, even at the beginning of our season, I would say our MAAC season, I would say we struggle with that a little bit. And every game is a battle in the MAAC. We can't just show up and win. And we talk about that a lot with our team. But even since day one of, November, whatever it was, we've talked about trying to be the same team every single day, regardless of style of play that we're playing, whether we're playing a team that presses, a slow, a zone, whatever it is trying to be our same team day in and day out because we're good enough to do that. We don't have to, be an amoeba and try and make, throw things at the wall. And so we know that we can win in a lot of different ways. And it's been a day by day process, I would say, to do that. I think it's an impossible task to be perfect in the same every day, but we're trying to get as close as we can to that.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And when you mentioned in terms of having multiple ways to win, I feel like it's interesting because so often you guys get talked about for your offense and the way that you guys play on the offense end, but it's the defense that always stands out for me. Like you guys really ramp it up with pressure, especially with pressing. And also I mean, like part of what makes it so fun too is you guys are pretty small, but it rarely feels like it. So like you mentioned in terms of like playing that many players and staying that locked in, what are some of the challenges or maybe things that you work around that have really played out this year? I know the defense was awesome last year as well, but taking it up to a higher level this year.
Yeah, I think that's been a nice thing for us defensively is that we didn't, revamp a whole new defensive system. So our returners were able to kind of have some really good habits in that already. And we were just able to build on that with, more players and more depth and kind of ramp it up to your point is that we can demand a lot and we can demand high ball pressure and we can demand, playing man to man for 40 minutes, player to player for 40 minutes because we're not going to play you for 40 minutes. So we can
Yeah.
demand a lot there. So that's been a huge key for us. Like I didn't think we played great offensively at Ryder. We were like 3 of 22 from three. But we were able to get some easy looks offensively because we were able to turn them over and get up and pressure the ball, particularly starting in the second quarter. So to your point of starting right away and playing every game the same, I didn't think we did that either. But regardless, that's the fun thing about this team is that we didn't make threes that game, and then we can go and finish inside, whether it's off our defense or drives or post touches or whatever it is. And then the nights that our threes are falling, then great. And then the nights that we're not offensively great anyway, we can still play off our defense. So This team is versatile. And to your point, we are smaller, but we negate a lot of that with our pressure and some of our defensive game plans.
Yeah, no, it's been really fun to watch. Especially with switching too. I feel like so often people like think of switching and they're like, oh, well, it's just a catch-all and like anybody can do it. And no, like so far from it. Like I think you watch a team that struggles to switch or doesn't communicate well. And honestly, like there are some teams this year who they started the year switching really well. And my God, the last 2 weeks have been absolutely awful for them. So like in terms of instilling that communication, that's one of the things I'm always interested in. I feel like it's really easy. Like you can teach scheme, you can teach all these things, but communication is just something you kind of have or you don't. So how do you kind of work on instilling that and what's been really key in that this year?
That's, from day one in June workouts, whether it's a shooting workout, whether it's offense, defense, we talk about like repeating things 3 times, in early lab continuous. So, that's a staple in how we communicate with our, with your teammates, with your fellow players on the floor, regardless of what you do, whether it's defense or not. But Coach Erica on our staff, she does a great job of hammering that home every single day in practice. And we always have somebody, whether throughout the course of the summer, we don't have scout guys or a scout team, and even early on in September, we're playing against each other a lot. And so I always had somebody's eyes, and usually it was Erica's on the defense. If I'm watching offense or if I'm watching something else, I always have her eyes on that, so that never gets to fall through the cracks. But you are right. I mean, switching sounds great and it sounds easy, and there's a lot of nuance to that. And my staff has done an amazing job of kind of fine tuning and tweaking and figuring out ways. Like we went into it knowing we were going to be a little bit small. But one of the things that we loved about switching is it allowed us to play a plethora of lineups. We could play guards together. We could play our road runners together. We could, play 4 road runners if we wanted. We could play all 5 guards, and it didn't matter. Ball screen, coverage wasn't going to change. It was just going to be a switch with different tactics in it. And so we were able to add different ways to, okay, if they're going to try and exploit the mismatch, then what are we going to do? And if they're going to go at our, our road runners off a switch, then what are we going to do? So we kind of built in layers of protection as we went.
You explain road runners.
Yeah, so we play a little bit non-traditional as far as like a traditional post player. All of our what you would call a post players play on the perimeter. We recruit versatility, whether you can shoot from the perimeter, pass, go off the bounce, at that position. And so there's a little bit of a negative connotation with the word post nowadays, and everybody wants to be a guard, everybody wants to shoot. And we weren't recruiting traditional posts in that way. So I challenged Coach Blake on my staff, my husband, to come up with a different kind of term for that group to buy into that is different and does encompass what we're talking about, where you can rim run and you can step out to 3 and you can go off the bounce and you can post up. And so he came up with road runners, fast, you keep coming at you. And so I struggled with saying road runner for a long time because it's just like a bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, the
And
alliteration.
it's supposed to rim run. So road runners rim running was really hard. So then that got abbreviated to, the Roadrunner sound, meep, which got abbreviated to now they're the meeps. So we call them the meeps.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now with anything I see on Twitter. That's very helpful.
Yep.
But like you're mentioning, I think that's part of what stands out too is like so often when you talk about a team that tries to play versatile, or has a lot of players who can do multiple things, it's all about like how do you actually accentuate all those things together? And I think that's really stuck out with you guys. Like I was going back through and watching stuff yesterday, and like even in the St. John's game earlier this year, like you guys really got Amina going in the post, and she's really solid at playing post up, especially against in the right matchups. And like obviously Megan does a ton of stuff, and we'll talk about her too. But like I feel like you really do a great job of getting everybody to their spots, and I think it can look really easy and fluid when it's happening. But again, like that, it looks easy and fluid because it's working well. So like, what is so big in instilling that, and how do you kind of teach what is or isn't a good shot and teaching flow?
That was a great question. So the versatility side of it, our motion was kind of designed to create the space for that. So, we are 5 out, and there's a variety of different ways to get people to those spots that you mentioned. And so within our motion, there are, depending on your skill set, it doesn't matter guard or post. Like if you're a guard that can post up, great. If you're a road runner that can shoot, great. And there's a lot of different ways to get, it doesn't really matter position. It's positionless in that way. So, in some of our actions, whether it's some of our screen away actions are, flare and flash on the backside, whether it's a ball screen, we know who we were looking for certain things. So you mentioned Amina, we know as a team, and we've gotten better, I would say, as the season's gone along, of knowing her spots and where she's really strong. But we know, like, if she's going to refuse or run to the rim off of a screen away, like whoever's popping like needs to look for that because she's got great hands, she's got great feet, she can catch and stay on balance and score really efficiently there. Whereas if you swing it, if you're a roadrunner and you're swinging it to Nelly, like go ball screen. She's unbelievable in ball screen. So you've got that like that flow. It's not this like set up rigid where defense can dig in and know what's coming. It makes it hard because it's in flow and it's as the ball moves, and then we just know, depending on who you're swinging it to or who you're screening away for or who you're back screening for, whatever it is, what they're strong at, and that's taken time to develop that chemistry for sure. And then you asked a little bit about what's efficient shot, and we've tracked since the summer, kind of like PPP throughout the course of the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So the points per possession, and we tried to get as close as we can to one. We did a lot of research on teams that were hovering around one at the end of the year last year, and we studied a lot of those teams. And some of the common denominators are you're to statistically do that, you're 50% from two, 33% from three, and above a positive assist turnover ratio above a one. So we studied a lot of those teams, and so for us that's layups and threes, and then you can mix in like Amina is someone that we call it kind of like a red light green light shot. Like if you can't make 33% from three, within some of the drills and the tracking that we do, then you're like you're shooting at the end of the shot clock only. Green light is like you're open, drive and kick, you're shooting that shot. And so Amina's a little bit different as far as like some of the mid-range game, because she's a green light shooter from that. She's gonna shoot 50% or above from a 15-foot jumper, from a turnaround jumper from 12 feet. So it's just based on your efficiency and what you've proven from June, really.
No, I like that because I think so often, because I definitely like, I mean, I understand basketball and watch it a ton, but like I came from more of an analytical background. I think one of the things that is really difficult sometimes for people is like understanding the application of it, because I think people can look at data and be like, okay, well, this is a good shot, that's a bad shot. And but again, like you're mentioning, like, okay, well, a good shot for Amina is different than a good shot for Meghan. Honestly, though, it feels like every shot's a good shot for Meghan. So it's not a great example, but like I mean, exactly, like it's all applied and getting it, in tune with another player. And I wanted to ask about that too, like mentioning the way that you guys look at tracking. How do you kind of teach or help players maybe understand and look at some of that stuff data wise? Or because that can definitely be a barrier with some players, I feel like.
We sent out weekly stats basically since the beginning of summer in June, of what we would kind of highlight in green if you were at the one PPP threshold. So if you're above 50%, if you're above 33, if you're 2-to-1, or above 1-to-1 in assist turnover. So we constantly sent them that data so they could see like were you at that threshold, were you above, were you below? And we actually do that throughout the course of the season. And I think they probably look at stat sheets and kind of get that feel from that. But we talked, I think early on in conference play, I would say, and we kind of showed after or before a film session, and we were like, if you're not at that, are you taking the right shots? Are you working on the right shots? Are you doing what you need to do in the gym on your own or with a coach to do that? So it's a constant reminder. And then, with whether it's filmed with me or their position coaches, they can really kind of dig into that. So they know, and that's the fun thing about this team, is that because of our spacing and we show film and constant like good shot or bad shot, and we constantly show the ball movement that leads to really good shots, whether it goes in or not. And we know more often than not those ones that are great ball movement. Like if you miss a wide open three and great ball, like we live. We constantly reaffirm that and show that and examples of that as well.
Definitely. And then especially too in terms of the way that you guys move the ball and pass, like top 25 in the nation in assists, and it shows in watching the game too. Is that something, do you like kind of recruit quickness in decision making? Is that something you look for in players? And how do you kind of teach that or work on it? Because I think again, like that's another thing where I feel like it's kind of one of the things you either have or you don't have it.
Well, the ball movement is really easy when you have 5 scores. So we recruit, you either got to be able to shoot the ball or be elite at something else. And
Yeah.
there's some exception to that. Like we've got a couple of 5 players on our team, a couple of our road runners who like aren't, 3-point shooters and prolific 3-point shooters, but they're really good at other things. And so there can be a few exceptions to that. You can't have 7 or 8 exceptions to that. But we know to be versatile and in our 5-out, you've got to have shooters around. So it wouldn't say we don't not recruit playmakers and people who can pass and decision make, but it starts, I think, with having the spacing that you need. Um, but then we talked a lot, we coached, especially last year, we coached a lot of like 1 second rule and the ball doesn't stick. We can't have like you hold them for forever and jabbing and then decide to go. You're making that quick decision of, drive past shot in that 1 second. And there's some exceptions to that in our motion of where we hold the ball and where we try not to, and where we're, you're allowed to let an action develop and where you're like, nope, it's got to be a quick swing here. And particularly off of like a drive and kick, like you can't hold it then. If you're not going to shoot it, you either got to attack again or keep it moving. But that's something that we coach a lot, whether it's in small breakdowns, it's in 5-on-5. There's been times where we've gone away from it and you can see it on film and we show it and then we got to go back to, nope, this is where the ball's got to move. And they, that's a testament to our team of knowing the offense, and they're all in the gym. They all watch film, and they want to keep getting better.
For sure. And kind of transitioning out of that too, before we get into a few other things. Shea Ralph had like this really cool presser after the South Carolina game. I think it was last week or the week before. Just talking about like how important it was to get some of the feedback, or just having people talk to you when you are having like a season that you're still building towards something. Obviously, like I think part of what's fun is having seen you guys last year compared to now. Like you can see the bare bones of like what you were building last year into now, and the way that everything's built up. But like, was there maybe a conversation or somebody who reached out to you last year that was like kind of like critical, in the wrong way to put it, important in like helping kind of build you up for like, all right, we can have this year after what our first year was here?
I would say at first I would start with my staff. There was a lot of times last year where, we weren't scoring the ball well, and I'm like, gosh, how can I help them more? How can I put them in better positions? Like we were struggling offensively, and my staff kept me sane and kept me going and helped a lot just for me to feel like we were still doing the right things, and giving me suggestions of things we could tweak. My staff's amazing. And, if anybody doesn't know them, Eric Johnson uh, was a head coach for a bunch of years at Boston College in Denver. My husband, Blake, who's been a head coach, Erica Brown, who's an amazing guard coach, defensive coach, recruiter. She's just, she's amazing. And then Alex McKinnon is our double one assistant now. They were all with me last year, and we've added Ace, our GA. And so the ones that were there last year, they as much as anybody were the day-to-day, sounding board, I guess I would say. And then I always ran stuff off of my dad and my brother last year. And then someone who's always just been constant in my life has been Sue Semrau. She constantly checks in. She kind of has a knack for knowing when to check in and when you need her. And so I'm really fortunate to have a great village to keep me going.
Yeah. No, yeah, it feels like that's one of the things that you definitely need when you're in a job like that. Because again, like from the outside looking in, it's easy for me to like, pick apart things and look at it in different lenses. But when you're in, day out, like it's just a very different feel and vibe. I can be sure of it without being in it. But yeah. Going on to the team as well, when you talk about efficiency and everything, I want to start off with Janelle Brown, because I was watching you guys throughout the year, I just keep everything about her just pops efficiency wise. She was already a good player last year, but the way that she's scored the ball this year has been insane. And just to like run some numbers for people to get a better appreciation. So she's shooting 60%, 62% from the field right now, which is already insane as a guard. And for reference, there's 21 players in the country who are shooting above 60% from the field on 5 or more attempts from the field per game. Janelle is like the only player who's not a post. It's her, Leilani Kapanis, and Taylor Theory from Ohio State. And then everything, it's Lauren Betts, Aoka Lee, Hannah Stolke. So like in terms of watching her growth from last year to this year, and the way that she has scored the ball, and the way that just the way that she's done it so efficiently, what has it been like getting to watch her kind of make that transformation, or continued evolution, I should say? And what do you think was most key for her? Because again, like not enough people are mentioning, like, this is literally one of the most efficient seasons I've ever seen from a player. It's been ridiculous.
Yeah, she's nuts. And for her, I'm just proud of her growth. Even from before we got here, she went from someone that was not playing a ton early in her career to had a small role on a championship team her sophomore year, and then was our starting point guard last year, and was really trying to manage how to be a starting point guard on a team with a lot of new, they graduated a lot of players off that championship team. and trying to figure out how to carry that load to this year. Now she's obviously having a breakout season. And for her, it's been really fun to watch because last year she was like a stallion that just couldn't, didn't know how to rein it in at times. And
Hmm.
she could just go, but at the detriment of fouls and, charges and running people over and things like that. And so this year, she's had a great offseason as far as learning how to stay on balance, save a foul or two a game on charges. She's gotten to 2 feet more. She's really incorporated the jump stop into her game so that she can be more on balance, which not only saves her fouls, but also allows her to better decision make with the basketball when she gets feet in paint, whether it is go up and score off two, or now you can take a second. Where's the help coming from? Which read am I making? Who am I passing to? Rather than trying to jump in the air and figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
And so that's been a huge key for her. And Erica Brown has worked a ton with her on that from the summer. And then, I think she would tell you that she's got great players around her. So it makes it easier because now people have to decide, are they going to come off Meghan Anderson in the corner and come help? Or are they going to leave Nellie one-on-one or, and pick your person around her. It's not just Meg. She's got great players all around her at all times. And I think people like Isa, Nicoletti Leite, and Katie have taken some of the pressure off her to have to create for everyone all the time. Those two do a great job as well and are capable of facilitating and getting feet in paint. And so the ball moves, and then like I said earlier, the ball moves back to her, and all of a sudden now someone's sprinting into a ball screen after you've played defense for 15, 16, 17 seconds, and now Nellie's getting downhill and you got to make a decision. So I'm proud of her, and she's just become level-headed and a leader, and she's matured, which, goes into all those things I just said. And so she's been a monster, and not to mention she's an unbelievable on-ball defender.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you mentioned somebody else too, Katie, like, I know, like, again, like, Megan has been like just an incredible freshman. We'll talk about her in a minute, but Katie really has impressed me this year too. Like, I know that she hasn't scored as efficiently as she wants to, or you guys want her to yet. But the way that her competitiveness just like emanates watching her play, like her on-ball defense, like she is often top of the press, does a ton of awesome stuff there, and is not afraid to take any shot, which I appreciate. So, like, what have you seen from her this year, and what are you most excited about with her moving forward?
Yeah, Katie's had an awesome evolution as she's come through her freshman year. And she's so rewinding back to when she decommitted from Fordham with the coaching change, and Coach Gately called me,
Mhm.
and I hadn't gotten a chance to see her. So I had seen Meg already, when she'd already been committed, and I hadn't seen Katie. So Coach Gately called me and told me, she's like, "You're gonna love this kid," because she coached me and knew how
Yeah,
I was a player and my competitiveness and my fire. She's like, "You're gonna love her. I mean, she's gonna battle her way to, being all freshman team and being a huge player for you and this, that, and the other." And so like, I believe you. And it's everything that Coach Gately said she was. She's a competitor. She's fierce. She's fearless. And she's shown a coachability that allowed her to keep getting better and keep fine tuning her game. So, early on, you mentioned she was not afraid to shoot from anywhere, which we need at times. But she's really kind of taken a focus, I would say, even in the last 5, 6 games of when to take the right shots, when to hold on to the ball, how to be a little bit more efficient. And that's hard to do as a freshman. It's particularly a small guard, learning the pace of the game and what your reads are at a little bit faster pace. And so over the last 4 or 5 games, I think she's at like I don't know the exact numbers, but it was around, at one point it was 9-1 assist turnovers. I know it's higher than that now. I think she's probably closer to like 13-3 in the last 4 games. And she's shooting the ball much better. So every freshman has their own adjustments. Sometimes it's based on position or what your strengths and weaknesses are. And she's really shown an ability to become more efficient as the season goes on.
definitely.
And
And oh,
she's
sorry,
she's
go
a,
ahead.
she's a killer on defense. Like I never
Yeah.
have to worry about her on defense. She's always in the right spots. She keeps people in front. I mean, she's just so solid.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what watching her play defense has been my favorite part. Anytime I see a player who can, if you can get into the paint and you can play defense like that, you're on my watch list because I love that stuff. And like you mentioned, I mean, obviously you played guard, and so like when you talk about a player coming in who is like obviously like has that first step, can really get down. What's like kind of key in teaching pacing? So I feel like one of the things that is really crucial for guards is learning sometimes the best way to go faster is to slow down. So what is that teaching process like a little bit with somebody who does have that kind of skill set?
Yeah, I honestly never had the first step. So I
Yeah.
was never like you need to slow down, Carly, because I was never that fast. But I think with Katie and freshman guards in particular, it's a lot of times just figuring out when to pick your battles, when to drive, when to not, when to swing the ball. And I used to talk about Lindsay Whalen, who I used to work for all the time, and that she was one of the best guards ever at knowing as a point guard when her team needed to score and knowing when her team needed to move the ball and facilitate and get somebody a look. And so that's kind of the like Katie can probably get feet in paint whenever she wants, but that doesn't always mean that you should go every time the ball is in your hands. And
Mhm.
that's an adjustment for, all guards, and in particular in the offense that we're trying to run, is that it's not a dribble drive, and when to go, when to attack a closeout, when do you have an advantage, and when to, live to see another day.
Yeah. And may I say, thank God it's not dribble drive. I do not enjoy dribble drive, but it's not for everybody. But yeah, I no that makes a ton of sense. And I think like again, people always compare like, oh, it's hard to be a post, it's hard to be a guard. I'm like, I mean, everything's hard when you're trying to learn it. But I think especially for a guard, like trying to figure out how to like especially the adjustment from going from playing in high school to playing in college when in high school, okay, maybe your coach wants you to get your feet in the paint every single time. There's just so much that's always moving parts that can really change it up. um but you mentioned having seen Meg before Katie. What was it like the first time you saw Meg? When was it, and what were kind of your thoughts when you first saw her play?
So I took the job at Fairfield. It would have been late April of 2022. And so we didn't get
Mhm.
a chance to look out that there's an April viewing period and a May.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to get out in April actually because we had Isa Nicoletti Lete on her visit that weekend. And so we went out in May, and we were looking at somebody on Meg's team that was on the previous coaching staff's recruiting list, somebody they had offered. And so we went to go watch, and it was in Atlantic City in May. And I went down and was watching her, and I was like, or I watching their team, and I was like, who's this kid? And I was like, she's just flying around. She's, kind of a post, but she's out hedging, she's guarding guards, she's blocking shots, she's making threes. Like I don't think she missed a three the entire game I watched her. And I was like, who is this kid? Like, I love her. And at this point in the spring, you're allowed to go talk to AAU coaches. So I went and asked, and he's like, yeah, she actually really liked Fairfield, but with Coach Frager retiring, she committed to Fordham. I loved Fordham. And so I was like, oh, dang. And I knew Coach Gately. So I think I texted Coach Gately within the week. I'm like, I love this kid. You got to steal. And then I told my staff after that weekend that she was what I wanted our like road runners to play like, where they can do a lot of different things. And it was a good example for us in recruiting going forward as a new staff to kind of get a feel for what I like and what I'm looking for. And then going into July, most of July is dead. It was like July 1st, and I think the dead period starts on the 5th or 6th at that point. And her AU coach calls me and is like, coaching change is happening. Meg's going to decommit. Do you still love her? And I said, of course I still love her. And so he's like, great, she wants to come visit it wants to be done, like doesn't want to drag this out through July, like wants to be done. Like, can she come visit before the dead period? And I'm like, I'm in Minnesota packing up our house. Um,
Yeah.
but my staff was there and they took her on a visit and FaceTimed me, and I'm on Zoom and all that during the visit, and she committed. She's is that I wish all recruiting processes were that quick and simple. But I mean, it feels like it was just meant to be. I've loved that kid since day one.
Yeah. No, it's that was the first, because that's when I first started talking to Blake this year. I think I watched who I'm trying to remember who you guys played before Vandy, but it was whoever you guys played before Vandy. She had yeah, she had like a really good game, and I was like, oh wow, okay, this kid is like this, because I do like stats queries like early on in there just to see, because it's so hard to keep up with everything. And I was like, okay, this is kind of nuts. Like I have not seen a shooting profile like this in a minute. And then watching her play, it's so wild because I think she's one of the things I wanted to ask you, like when you have a player who is that efficient, who is capable of really making a shot from anywhere else, but I also feel like she plays very within herself. So like, how do you kind of try and coax out more from that? Because again, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like in watching, she does not seem like a player that you would have to necessarily get on. If she makes a mistake, she seems very much to get on herself right away if something happens.
Yes. Well, the fun thing again, it's the fun thing about this team is that we don't have to like call her number and pound it in and get her a shot. Like she's gonna find shots within the flow of our offense, so it does come naturally. It's not like we're trying to feed Meg at the block and then pound,
Yeah.
pound, pound. Like it flows in that way. And so we've actually talked to the staff about that of like, do we need to have more do I need to play calm more to get her? And I think she's more efficient the way that we're going about it now. But she is hard on herself, and that's something that she would tell you firsthand that she's worked on, and her teammates have been awesome with her of help, keeping her confidence up and continue to encourage when she misses a shot or two. But she's just incredibly consistent in her work. Every single day, she's in the gym doing something extra, whether it's shooting, whether it's finishing. Coach Erica has worked a lot with her on her rebounding and defense, one-on-one before and after practice. So whatever it is that she feels like, hasn't been great that day or needs to get better at, like she stays in the gym, and that's half the battle. But the cool thing about her is that she's poised, she goes at her own pace, and I think that's another element of why she's been able to be so efficient.
Yeah, it was really cool too, because saying she started off slow would be the wrong way to put it, because I wouldn't say she started off slow, but like it just feels like she really eased into things like about midway through non-conference, and like just to see, like you mentioned, so much of your offense is just playing free and playing the way that everybody else is, like making sure that you're finding your shots, finding rhythm, and keeping the ball moving. Like she can really pass. I don't think her assist numbers indicate how good of a passer she is for her position, because I think part of what's so difficult at playing like the 4 or 5, especially now, and what you guys do, like if you are doing things right, it's maybe harder for a regular person to notice who doesn't watch basketball a ton. But if you are doing things wrong, you're going to notice right away, because the offense is going to stop, the defense is going to recover, and then you're going to have to start things all over again. And that just rarely happens with her.
Mhm.
And again, like when you're talking about somebody who's like 18, like that's just pretty rare to have somebody who can do all that. And I mean, her shot form is the same every single time. It's so good. She's shooting almost 70% on twos on the year, which is just like people. I mean, she's 50-40-90 right now, but that's even more impressive to me. Shooting almost 70% on twos and on the attempts she takes is like mind numbing to me. Because that's one of the first things I talked to Blake about. I was like, dude, like she hasn't even really been in a college weight room yet, and she finishes through contact like that. Like that's crazy. So
Yeah.
not to gush, but yeah, she has been really fun to watch, because you can just do so many different things with her and do it incredibly well.
Well, so her mom's a Hall of Famer at Fordham. Her mom, she's taught well.
Yeah.
But she, to your point, she hasn't even really, been in a college weight room that long, but she was a guard most of her career. And so she has those guard skills, and the fun thing for her and watching her grow, you're right, her ability to finish. She's always kind of been a finesse kid. But she's really taken to the finishing that Coach Blake and our our Roadrunner group has done with her. And so she's someone that is the epitome of a roadrunner, can do a little bit of everything and is willing. Sometimes you're like, no, I don't want to post up, and she's like, oh, I'll go post up. That's fine. I'll go shoot outside. That's fine. I'll pick and roll. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's the exciting thing for her game, is that she can truly play a lot of different positions and do a lot of different things.
Yeah, no, it's been really a blast to watch, and I'm so excited for her future, because again, like that kind of framework to start with is pretty wild. And you guys definitely got a good one. And hearing
Hmm.
anything about her work ethic and stuff too, that definitely contributes as well to that feeling. Um, but I think the last thing that I want to hit on before we get out of here, when you just talk about what maybe, and I know you maybe haven't really been able to sit down and think about it because you're focused on what you guys are doing now, but what do you think has maybe been your biggest shift for you since becoming a head coach? Like, what do you think how do you think you've maybe changed the most, or something that you didn't expect that has really kind of opened your eyes in a different way?
How I've changed, I've had to learn to take care of myself more.
Yeah.
I have had to find some routines and things, just because, Eric Johnson on my staff tells me all the time, like, if I can't pour from an empty cup, if I'm bad, it affects everybody else. If I don't have the energy, if I'm not thinking clearly, that affects the entire team. And so, he's obviously speaking from his experience as a head coach. And so I've found ways to continue to put myself at the best, myself at my best, for
Mhm.
our team. I've found, regular meditation and workouts and how I eat and sleep and things like that, are just as important as, recruiting and film and things like that, because I have to lead 25 people every day. And I've had to adjust, because as an assistant coach, you're constantly doing and to-do lists and recruiting and all these things. That was my job for a lot of years as a recruiting coordinator. And now for me, it's more being able to think and plan ahead and make the right decisions and the big picture and things like that. It's a little less, you know, doing and busy work and a little bit more, visionary and planning accordingly and being thoughtful and intentional of what's upcoming for the team. And I've had a great staff that they take a lot off my plate, but B, they give me the space to do that because they're so good at their jobs. I don't have to worry about them. So I think that's probably been the biggest mindset shift, I would say, as I've become a head coach. And I tell our staff and team all the time, like this team makes it so easy for me. Even since last year, like that they've been bought in. I haven't had to flip a culture. Coach Frager had a great group of women here for me to coach last year, and we've just been able to build off that. So I'm not coaching attitudes and effort and things like that. I'm coaching, development of student athletes both on and off the court and in the best way possible.
No, I love that. That's awesome to hear. And yeah, I think especially like you mentioned, it's so often I feel like in coaching and just sports in general, like everything is about like how much time you don't sleep and this and that. And I think like finding the balance with that is I'll get back to you when I figure that out. But yeah, I can
I
imagine.
will say I'm someone that doesn't need a lot of sleep, and
Yeah.
as a coach, I always say like you are going to be great at coaching if you can function on no sleep. So don't get it twisted that I sleep 10 hours a night. I sure don't. But you just have
Yeah.
to find your rhythm and find, when is there a night in a week that you're like, I have to get caught up on this night or 10 days. I usually say I need one good night every like 10 days.
Yeah. No, that makes sense to me. Well, Carly, I really appreciate your time. I know you guys have a game coming up soon. A lot's coming up in MAAC play in general. But yeah, no, I appreciate the time. To everyone listening, thank you for listening. Keep up with all things Fairfield. Really excited to see what you guys do to finish out the season and headed into March, which is 24 days from now, which is just mind-boggling. But to everyone listening, thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much, Mark.